showtime!
Sumeru and patch 3.0 are fast approaching. We only have a little over a month left to prepare for this update, and while some players might prefer to dive in head first, unprepared, just letting whatever happen, I'm not quite that way. So here are some of the ways that I'll be preparing for this update myself. First up, we have a piece of advice that can be taken one of two ways. And what I mean by that is we know Dendro is coming. So let's say this, you've had your Diluc for almost the entire 2 years that this game has been out so far, and for whatever reason, RNGesus has cursed your life and you have never gotten a good Pyro Goblet. Well, the bad news is that grind is about to get worse. I know for many people it's like the worst news they could ever get. So my piece of advice to you is if you haven't already been utilizing the strongbox to try to get that Pyro Goblet, well, you should have been doing that this whole time. But if you haven't, now's the time to start. You should get in as many strongbox rolls as you can before Dendro comes out and there is another element in the Goblet stat pool. Now let's look at this the other way. Yes, Dendro is coming, and for many of us, that's a very exciting thing because we finally have a new element to play with hopefully a whole new set of reactions. The downside is it's going to be like day one of Genshin all over again. None of us are going to have Dendro cups, so that means we're going to have to try. And by try, I mean scavenge like sewer rats. That means that I will be hoarding as close to the 1500 limit of 5 stars I can. This way, I have as many chances as I can possibly get to get a good Dendro cup day one. Plus, there's always the hope that with a whole new region, maybe the strongbox will get some kind of update. For the time being, I'm pretty content just trying to get a Dendro cup out of it, especially because I want to play with the Dendro characters as soon as possible. Next up is something that I have personally been burned by and particularly punishes a type of player like me. Clear your quest log. Make that thing as empty as you possibly can before Sumeru comes out. When Inazuma came out, I was confused how to get the hell to Inazuma. I didn't see anything. I had no quests. I mean, I had quests. My log was quite full, and that was the problem. There were pre-quests that I had not done yet to actually do the quest to go to Inazuma, and it could have been worse, honestly. We all have probably encountered the system where the game tells you can't progress in this quest because the NPC is tied up in another quest. So you gotta do that quest to do the other quest. And sometimes these are NPCs that you don't even recognize by name. You're like, who the hell is that? So the last thing I want going into Sumeru is for that to happen again or possibly worse. And for a lot of players, this isn't going to matter because you froth at the mouth for anything even remotely resembling a quest. But for the type of player like me, I like to put those things off. But not this time. My quest log will be squeaky clean and empty going into this patch. For those of you who were around for the launch of Inazuma, you might remember the mad dash for Ayaka Ascension materials, particularly the Sakura blooms. This might not have been an experience shared by everybody, but I particularly remember being bombarded by co-op join requests from a legion of Ayaka profile pictures. Now it's understandable. You got a new character, you're excited about them, and you want to ascend them. But of course, with a brand new region, people are going to be hesitant about letting you in their world because, well, they want the materials too. Even if they don't necessarily have the character, there might be something else they want and they could be afraid that you're going to take them. You could always find nice people who will let you in their world regardless. Maybe they're just trusting, maybe they're just Canadian. You really don't know. But that can be a difficult thing to rely on. There are, however, a few alternatives to just asking random strangers. First method is to just have an alt account. Now that can be a big ask. That can be a long undertaking of having to do a lot of story quests to actually progress through the region. You might also only have access to one device, so using an alt account might not be an option for you. For example, if you only play on mobile because it's your only option, well, you would obviously need a second phone to do this. Now, obviously, creating a whole second account just to avoid waiting a few days to ascend your character or talking to strangers, that's a lot of effort. When it comes to saving resources for a region, there are obvious ones like Mora, EXP weapon crystals, stuff like that. There are, however, some resources that people might neglect or might not save. In my time of talking to members of the community, I find that there are a lot of players who outright stopped doing weekly bosses. Totally understandable. After a while, they feel kind of pointless to do, especially if you don't really need any of the current billets and your talents are pretty much done, save for, crowns and stuff. Well, I would say it's time to get off your lazy ass and start doing some weekly bosses again. You got a little bit of time to maybe stockpile a few extra billets because you never know what's gonna happen. Maybe these are going to be a crazy round of weapons. Maybe they're gonna suck. Maybe they're gonna be tied to Dendro. You don't know. A slightly more obscure resource that a lot of players may have never found a use for, or maybe some don't even know it exists, is the Dust of Azoth. This is the reagent that's used to turn one elemental crystal into an element of another kind, which could be very useful when Dendro comes out. We're not going to have a massive stockpile of those like we do a lot of the other elements. So maybe you have ignored Dust of Azoth, maybe you never bought it from the shop. Well, maybe now's the time to start consider either saving for it or buying some now and then some more even later. New bosses will of course drop these, but I'm sure we can all remember a time back when we started where we were actually gated by these things. Bosses just weren't dropping them as fast as we needed them. However, with what we know now and the resources we have, we can prevent that from happening again, but with Dendro this time. Another resource you may not have thought of is the teapot currency. Even if you're not someone like myself who actually enjoys the decoration portion of the teapot, as limited as it may be, there are still other rewards for you to purchase in there, and we've seen things get added to it in the past, such as the green experience books, and it stands to reason that things could get added again. However, even if you don't care about the decoration, you're still going to need some of the new furnitures or the new furniture sets for the new characters that get released in Sumeru, and that gives Primo Gems, and well, everyone loves Primo Gems. Here's a piece of advice that goes against something I said earlier, so they're not meant to do together. Obviously, like Ascension materials, we can't farm talent books that we don't have yet, but you can farm the ones we do have. And what I mean by that is if you've been putting off some talent leveling, maybe now is the time to listen to Kaching's advice and stop procrastinating. Even if you think you might not want the new characters, you really don't know. And the last thing you want to be doing is feeling like you need to be spending resin on old talent domains when there are new things to do with it. Once again, we have Dendro coming out as a brand new playable element, and with that is the extraordinarily safe assumption that we're going to get 2 new artifact sets along with it. One may not even be related to Dendro and do something entirely different. At the very least, we will all have Dendro Traveler, so we will have somebody to use a brand new Dendro artifact set on, and you may want that artifact set on the Traveler, maybe even just a hold for a new character. This next one is not quite as positive, and what I mean by that is pins, map pins. Some people use a ton of them, some people use almost none of them. But one thing is for goddamn certain, that's Hoyoverse does not give us enough of these damn things. Look, I am optimistic about a lot of things about this game, but given their history with increasing the pin limit, which is barely at all, I can't say I have much hope that the limit is going to be increased by very much, if even at all. But there ain't no way on God's green earth that anyone at Hoyoverse thinks that 150 pins is enough for what we have right now. So without going into a ridiculous rant about pins and how much I hate the current limitations, I will just say this: it's time to delete some pins. Let's just assume that the limit is not going to go up by much. Again, if at all. You're going to want to clear some of those out. The last thing you want to be doing when you're exploring a new region is have to stop and hunt down all your pins across your map. I would say clear what you can, try to commit some of them to memory, maybe start relying on the interactive map for some of them, or maybe just, decide maybe I actually don't need to mark the fishing spots anymore because I already have the R5 catch and fishing is a dead mechanic. But once again, I would love to be made to look like a fool. But quite frankly, all I expect is an increase to the limit of about 50, and that's not enough. That's not enough for anything. Next up, you're going to want to craft some portable waypoints. These things are incredibly helpful for exploring new regions. Unfortunately, I don't have practical footage to show you in regards to this, but imagine this. You get up to a top of a mountain, you just climbed it. There's no waypoint or shrine of the 7 up there, but it is a high point where you can see a lot of things. That is a perfect place to put a waypoint where you can then fly to one thing, teleport back, get the next thing, and get everything in sight in a large radius. Instead of the alternative, which is, picking one and then getting distracted by playing connect the dots from there. This is something that I do frequently with every new region that comes out. I find high points and then I put a portal waypoint in there and then I just glide around looking for things from above. It's just a very effective and thorough way of clearing out large areas of a new region. There's some real sweaty things you can do to prepare, like leave your parametric transformer off cooldown. That way, as soon as the patch hits, you could put in some materials, get some stuff, maybe some new weapon enhancement materials, maybe some new talent books. I don't know if they update that right away, but if they do, you could squeeze a little bit extra rewards out of Sumeru. You can obviously craft 5 condensed resin. Sadly, we can't craft more, but whatever. You could also let your resin cap to 160, but honestly, we don't know how long it's going to take us to get to a new domain, so you could be spending hours looking for it, and then you're just generating no resin, so I definitely wouldn't do that. I might go to like 130 or something when the patch goes live. Plan it the best you can. The way I'm looking at it is I would much rather have resin after the patch than some resin before. Like, for an example, I would take 40 resin post-patch over 100 resin pre-patch that I would have to spend on stuff beforehand. But that's me. I'm going to be looking to build the new characters as fast as humanly possible. Hopefully, new 5-star comes first, Tainari. I hope he does. I want to build him as quick as possible. I'm going to be spending fragile resin on bosses, on talent materials, whatever I can. If you have advice of your own on how you're preparing to go into the Sumeru patch, leave it down in the comments below. This is just how I'm preparing, and I might have missed some things, or I might not have a certain perspective that another player might. Socials like my YouTube membership and my Patreon are down below in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.